Welcome to the Streamline to Scale podcast, where we help online business owners just like you go from 6 to 7 figures with ease. I'm Erin Persiger, and after years of working with companies to achieve sustainable growth, I've learned that the key to success lies in simplicity. Tune in to the Streamline to Scale podcast, where we're turning business dreams into reality. Hey there, welcome back to the Streamline to Scale podcast. I'm Erin Persinger, and today we're going to talk about offshore hiring and the most frequently asked questions I get asked around that and why sometimes we choose to hire offshore. So if you have followed me for any time at all, you know I advocate hiring both domestic and offshore hires. There are certain situations where I choose to hire one over the other, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the most frequently asked questions I get when hiring. So first, let me say that not everyone has always been a fan of my offshore hiring. I have been publicly called out for hiring offshore, and I just want to bust a few myths around offshore hiring. First off, I think one of the big problems comes from the fact that when we think of offshore hires, we often think of sweatshops in the middle of nowhere with kids making pennies on the hour, sewing denim jeans or something like that. Or another place our mind goes is to the call center that you've called in from the free phone service or your internet or whatever, trying to get it fixed like 5,000 times. You're in a constant loop with someone who really doesn't speak English, and you end up frustrated and you're like, oh my gosh, I would never want that for my clients. And I agree. I would never want that for my clients either, but that's not the offshore hiring I'm talking about. So we have found amazing, phenomenal hires offshore, not only for myself, but also for clients. My entire team right now is made up of offshore team members. That's not always been the case. I've had domestic hires and offshore hires. And again, we do both for clients. We do domestic and offshore hires. One of the common misconceptions around offshore hires is that you're getting those people out of the call centers who just showed up to work with no idea what they're doing. They're leaving your customers frustrated and overwhelmed. And that is not what we see happening in my own business or in the businesses that we hire for. Offshore hires are phenomenal, intelligent, smart humans who really help us take our business to the next level. Another important thing to note is that we never underpay our offshore hires. If you are going to hire offshore for the economy right now at the time of this recording, it's best to start $5 an hour and above. Anything below that, I really wouldn't consider. And that's specifically for the Philippines. That's the rate in the Philippines, $5 per hour right now. At the time of this recording, the economy there fluctuates, same as everywhere else. So that could change. But right now, that's where we start for a general admin VA. Same as freelancers here. They pay their internet. They don't have benefits, all those things. So that's a good rate that includes that. You will see people hiring offshore VAs for $2 an hour. A couple weeks ago, someone sent me a friend request and their big banner said, we can find you help for $2 an hour. I was like, you are not the friend for me because I don't ever want to be part of somebody who finds $2 an hour help. I've seen places where agencies have paid $2, $3 an hour while charging the client $10 and $15 an hour. And the problem is then the client feels like they're getting a good deal still, because as opposed to like an American or Canadian VA, yes, maybe. But the problem is that then the agency is eating all the money. The assistants really don't get the money. They're getting $2, $3 an hour, which is not a good living wage for them. And I've personally experienced that happening with not my own team members, but team members in other businesses that I went into, and the business owner had no idea whatsoever. So it was a really bad situation. Please stay away from those kind of hires. That's a side note, rabbit trail of my soapbox speech that I give all the time. Do not underpay your people. You will end up with people like the call center that they do not speak English, where you get stuck in the loop because they're not trained. They only know there are certain scripts that they've been given, and that's all. And that's what you will get if you start to try to hire at $1 to $2 an hour. You get beginners. Now, those people will grow into amazing hires. They will find their way out of a call center. Those $1 to $2 an hour hires do not stay in that position long. They automatically elevate themselves to a more reasonable position, of course, because who wouldn't? So you'll get constant turnover in that kind of situation as well. But now I digress. Who am I? Why should you listen to me? I'm Erin Persinger. Of course, you probably know that by now. I'm the CEO of Premier Virtual Operations, the host of the Ethical Hiring Hub, where you can come to find great help. We love to connect service providers with amazing entrepreneurs who are just looking to move their business to the next level. And we show you how to sustainably, ethically build long-term teams. And that's my goal. That's my mission, is that I love for people to be able to build sustainable, ethical teams where both sides of the relationship thrive and have a benefit from the hire. So some of the most commonly asked questions I get, though, when we do hire or when I get called out in the online space for my horrible hiring practices, which is not really true. And I usually convert those people over to my ways once they understand the method behind my madness. Of course, the first is this a living wage for these people? Yes, 100%. What I've quoted you is a living wage in the Philippines at this current moment. I can't stress that enough. I know because we judge the market over there. There's several places we do research. And of course, my own team gives me good feedback on what's a reasonable rate, what's not a reasonable rate. And we ask others outside of my own team as well. Is this a reasonable rate? Can people live off this? Can you compare this to something for me? I have hired people as virtual assistants from the Philippines who make more being virtual assistants than they make being nurses or engineers or accountants. That is why it makes it so amazing for us here, because our dollar is stronger. It's not that you're underpaying the people. It's that the value of the dollar is just different. The currency conversion works in our favor right now. So that's why it makes it so amazing. It is not underpayment, and we certainly pay what they're worth, their skill set in their currency. So one time I had a person explain it to me as like, would you go to another country and offer to pay more for a hotel room because that's what they're charging? Well, no, of course you wouldn't. You would pay the listed rate on the hotel room because that's the standard rate in their country. Same thing with a restaurant, buying groceries, anything else, you pay the standard rate in their country. So that's what we're looking at here. We pay the standard rate in their country. Do they speak English is my next most commonly asked questions. If you hire from the Philippines, English is predominantly their second language. It's often their language of business and education. There's a wide variety of dialects in the Philippines. From province to province and city to city, they can speak with a different dialect. There's different words. It makes it hard for them to even understand each other sometimes in certain words, not overall, but for certain phrases and words. So they default to English, which is the common second language. Yes, they can speak English. Are there a few things about their English that's a little bit different than ours? Sure. Yes, there is. They do speak a little tiny bit different version of English. The only time we run into that being a problem is if you have a copywriter. We only hire trained copywriters, so they are aware of the differences and they correct them. Can they work on my time zone? That's another question that I frequently get when we're hiring. And the answer is yes, absolutely. When we put a job ad out, we always include the time zone. That way the people know exactly what time zone they'll be expected to work. I always say you don't have to have full overlap on your time zone, but it does help to have at least a couple hours a day of overlapping. My own assistant works a split time shift where she works part in her daytime and part with me, which is her evening. I'm on the East Coast, so her evening time overlaps with my morning. And so we hammer out a couple good hours of work there when we're together. I go do my own things, so I'm productive, and then she does a lot of things while I sleep. So it works out perfect for us. You can find what works perfect for you and your assistant and works well for your business. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of global hiring in general, because there's so much more flexibility. Do you need someone of the night? Maybe you do. And so then you have availability to that person in time zones other than your own. Now, one of the biggest questions I get is, what do I watch out for when I'm hiring offshore? So it's scary to hire offshore, right? It's scary to hire in general. I know this. We work with clients all the time who have been burnt in the past. I have one client in particular who's an amazing woman, but she had been very badly schemed by an assistant, so badly that it took a while even for us to unravel what happened there. But she had been schemed by a hire. And I will tell you that it can happen to anyone. There are certain measures you need to put in place before you hire from anywhere. This is not just an offshore problem. This is an onshore problem, domestic problem. You need to have safeguards built into your business so that when you hire, you are confident that people cannot steal your information, that you're actually hiring who you say you're hiring, and all those things. So some common red flags that I want you to watch out for, and some common questions to ask when you're hiring, to ask yourself. First, does this person really seem like they are who they say they are, right? Does this person appear professional? Do they look like they know what they're talking about? Are they reading from a teleprompter, or do they understand what you're saying? All those things are questions to ask when you go into the hire, so you don't end up with someone who is not really who they say they are. And in our process, we've built in several steps so we can make sure that they are who they say they are throughout the whole process. So you want to build actually a hiring funnel that covers several different types of communication. One thing is face-to-face communication. Always make sure you have that at some point. People will say it's not important to have a face-to-face interview. I disagree with those people. I always want a face-to-face interview. So on Zoom, of course, face-to-face on Zoom, so you can actually know you're getting who you think you're getting. Another red flag is when they want any type of payment up front, or they act oddly about payment. You don't want any of that. You should not be necessarily paying up front. We work out payment agreements with the hires when they come on. And then you want to look too at their references, things like that. Do they have past experience in this field? You do not want a newbie here. As I mentioned from the call center, there's a place for newbies. So I'm not giving them any slack. I understand there's a place. Everyone needs to start somewhere. But if you are in a hurry to get a hire, you want to ramp up as quickly as possible. You need the return on investment that your hire provides. Then you don't want to go with a newbie. You want to go with someone at least intermediate experience level or above. And so some of the questions you can ask there is like, how long have you been doing this? Do you have any examples of work, depending on what position you're hiring for? All of those things are good questions to ask. Hiring offshore is really not as scary as it seems once you know the process and once you have your process dialed in. I always recommend clients develop a repeatable process. There's security measures that we go over and put in place so that you know things like LastPass, your Google Drive security, all of those things. You want to look at those before you bring the hire on. That's just one way you can safeguard yourself. So that's the biggest frequently asked questions I get around hiring. If you have other questions, we would love to hear them. I would love to come on and answer them. You can send us a quick email at team@erinpersinger.com. We are always excited to hear from you. We love to hear your questions and we'll answer them on the show. So that's all we have for you today. Be sure to reach out. Let us know if you have any additional questions, and I'll see you next week on another episode of the Streamline to Scale podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Streamline to Scale podcast. We hope you gained valuable insights on scaling and streamlining your business. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, growing your online business can be easy. By focusing on developing lean, effective teams, creating simple systems, and implementing smart business practices, you can take your business to the next level. And if you're ready to take action and start growing your business today, head over to our website at premiervirtualoperations.com to learn more about our services and how we can help you reach your business goals. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of Streamline to Scale.